In 1949, an English novelist by the name of George Orwell wrote or published 1984, what was destined to become one of the most celebrated dystopian novels of the 20th century. The story, Mr. Speaker, was set in future England, and as the author himself wrote, it was intended as a show-up of the perversions which have already been partly realized in communism and fascism, I unquote. And of course, he took the experiences of Nazi Germany and Stalinist Russia into consideration. And he also described his novel as a warning to the British public that totalitarianism, if not fought against, could triumph anywhere. Actually, had George Orwell been alive today, he would have been extremely pleased, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that most of the world has moved away from the fascist, communist forms of government to firmly entrenched forms of democratic governance. However, I'm sure he would have been shocked to see that the little island paradise called Ceylon, which was how it was known then, which gained independence from the British Empire 1 year before George Orwell published his novel in 1948, has become now the setting of a true-to-life Orwellian nightmare. In fact, in 1984, the dictator was called the Big Brother, and in that novel, pictures, the cutouts of the Big Brother is everywhere. And now today in Sri Lanka, in real life, we have our own version, our own indigenous version of the Big Brother in our Maharajatuma. As the London Guardian wrote on the 14th of September, I quote, Colombo streets are littered with so many pictures of President Mahinda Rajapakse and his brothers that the incipient personality cult would shame a Chinese communist. Actually, the giant cutouts displayed in every nook and corner of this country, I'm sure would have even ashamed Hitler and Stalin, and to be fair on the modern Chinese leaders, they have moved away from this kind of cheap display of their hubris. However, I'm now coming to the subject. What is distinctly Orwellian about what is happening in Sri Lanka today is the newspeak, the concept of newspeak, which George Orwell introduced in his novel. The newspeak of the Rajapaksa regime. Newspeak, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is a manner in which, for propaganda purposes, you twist language to mean or to say the opposite of what it really means. For example, in the novel 1984, the Ministry of Peace actually deals with war. And in that novel, the Ministry of Love actually deals with torturing people. Likewise, we saw the same thing happening recently when the Peace Secretariat of Sri Lanka, in the last few years, suddenly became actually the War Secretariat of Sri Lanka, because that became the main institution apologizing for all the atrocities which happened in this country in the name of defeating terrorism. And today, coming to the Honourable Minister's subject, we are talking about welfare camps. That is a totally Orwellian and sinister and a cynical way of naming these camps, which are actually prisons for nearly 300,000 people. As you know, these welfare camps, that is why the international community are calling internment camps. In actual fact, they are open prisons with barbed wire. And these people, you're calling them IDPs, internally displaced persons. But I suggest that they ought to be, in actual fact, be called FDGPs, for the simple, in actual fact, they are forcibly displaced and detained persons. Nearly 300,000 people were uprooted and displaced from the conflict zone, and after 4 months, the government officially announced the defeat of the LTTE in May. Over 280,000 people, we believe, are still held in closed camps in one of the most serious human rights crises in 21st century Asia. And the only crime, Mr. Minister, which these unfortunate people have committed is to have been born in an area which was under LTTE control for nearly 2 decades. Previously, these very same people suffered untold hardships and humiliations under the brutal and tyrannical rule of the LTTE. Their children were abducted. They were subject to all forms of decrees by the fascistic LTTE. But unfortunately, now that the LTTE has been defeated, well done. But the very government which promised them liberation is actually putting them into even more tyrannical forms of hardships and humiliations. In fact, they are facing the proverbial from the frying pan into the fire situation, and these people have been denied their most basic of human rights, the freedom of movement, of speech, the freedom of assembly, of livelihood, of grievances redressed. And according to certain reports we have, 30 to 40 persons are abducted or disappears on a daily basis. And like the conflict which preceded this crisis, the war without witnesses, the local and international organizations are not allowed in these areas, in these camps. Local and international media and other NGOs are not allowed. No, I am not. I am not generalizing the figures.
No, I only refer to the figures you said. 30 to 40 are abducted
no,
daily.
I have.
We challenge that. We would like to challenge it.
Okay.
Because I don't think it is. You can.
Okay. In that case, Minister, by all means, prove it is not so by opening these camps to the world. Let us go. To begin with, even members of parliament.
Yeah,
we have been barred from going into these camps.
I don't want to
disturb you. Have nothing to hide.
I don't want to disturb you.
Yes.
I don't want to disturb you.
You are most welcome because I know you are sincere, but I have even here various articles which claim.
Articles
there are
can be written.
All sorts of claims, Minister, and counterclaims, but that is the very reason. You must be more transparent and you must open these camps for public inspection. You must have all-party parliamentary select committees which are allowed to go in there and look into the veracity of what is going on.
That is a proposal that you are putting forward.
So if you don't mind.
That's a proposal you are putting forward. But these IDPs cannot be taken to the villages until we demine those places.
These are
you
all
accept that.
very sad
Demining
excuses.
Demining is
to that, Mr. Minister.
Priority. Otherwise, how can you take them to their places?
And again, I'm coming to that. Even I was about to say, even we as members of parliament are not allowed. And because of the limited time, I'm not going to talk about the conditions within the camps. But I'm going to deal with the issue which was raised by Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena. Now the government, like a mantra, likes to give various excuses for not allowing these people the freedom of movement. But first of all, I must tell the country and the world that the people who are being held in these camps are not refugees, economic or otherwise. The majority of the detainees who are there have their own homes to go back to, or have kith and kin in different parts of the country who are willing to put them up.